The skyline of Dubai shimmered beneath the golden rays of the morning sun, reflecting off glass towers that seemed to touch the heavens. Luxury cars glided silently along spotless roads, private helicopters crossed the sky, and enormous yachts floated peacefully in the turquoise waters of the Arabian Gulf. It was a city where dreams became reality, where fortunes were created overnight, and where the world's wealthiest people gathered to enjoy lives most could only imagine. Among them lived one man whose name appeared on the covers of international business magazines almost every month. His name was Adrian Khalid Morgan. At only 33 years old, Adrian had become one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the Middle East. His technology empire stretched across continents. He owned luxury hotels in Europe, shipping companies in Asia, renewable energy projects in Africa, and real estate worth billions throughout the Gulf. People admired him. Investors respected him. The media worshipped him. To the world, Adrian had everything. But the world only saw what he allowed them to see. Every morning he woke up in his breathtaking penthouse overlooking the Burj Khalifa. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the magnificent city below while a team of assistants prepared every minute of his schedule. He owned more than 30 luxury cars. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Bugattis. Every vehicle was customized. Every watch he wore cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. His wardrobe contained suits made by the finest Italian designers. He traveled only by private jet. Money had become meaningless to him. If he wanted something, he bought it immediately. Yet the more he purchased, the emptier he became. Every evening followed nearly the same routine. His friends, if they could truly be called friends, filled his mansion with loud music, expensive food, endless entertainment, and endless bottles of alcohol. They laughed loudly, danced without a care, and congratulated one another on living what they called the perfect life. Adrian believed them, or at least, he tried to. He rarely spent a night alone. Every day seemed to introduce someone new into his social circle. He chased excitement constantly, believing that the next party, the next expensive vacation, or the next thrilling experience would finally make him feel complete. Instead, each sunrise felt emptier than the last. When everyone left and silence returned to his enormous penthouse, Adrian often walked alone through rooms larger than most houses. The expensive paintings no longer impressed him. The gold decorations felt cold. The marble floors echoed with loneliness. He would stand before the massive glass windows overlooking Dubai and ask himself a question he never dared ask aloud. Why am I still unhappy? He quickly buried the thought. The next evening, another celebration would erase it. Or so he believed. Years passed this way. Business expanded. His fortune doubled. His fame grew. But peace never arrived. One afternoon, Adrian attended a meeting with several international investors. The deal was worth almost $3 billion. Everyone celebrated after signing the contracts. Champagne glasses were raised. Smiles filled the room. Adrian smiled too. But inside, he felt nothing. On his way home, his chauffeur stopped at a traffic signal. As Adrian absent-mindedly looked through the tinted window, he noticed an elderly man standing on the roadside. The man wore simple clothes. His shoes were worn out. Yet he smiled warmly while handing bottled water to construction workers standing under the scorching summer sun. The workers thanked him sincerely. The old man had almost nothing. Still, he looked happier than Adrian had felt in years. The traffic light turned green. The car drove away. But Adrian kept thinking about that smile. Why had a poor man looked richer than the richest billionaire in Dubai? That question lingered in his mind. Days later, Adrian flew to London for another business conference. During the flight, severe turbulence shook the aircraft. The private jet dropped suddenly. Passengers screamed. Assistants panicked. For nearly 2 terrifying minutes, nobody knew whether the plane would survive. Adrian gripped his seat so tightly his hands turned white. For the first time in years, he truly believed he might die. His wealth meant nothing. His luxury meant nothing. His reputation meant nothing. One thought overwhelmed every other. What if this is my last day? The aircraft eventually stabilized. The pilots landed safely. Everyone applauded. Some cried with relief. Adrian remained silent. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept imagining what would have happened if the plane had crashed. His billions would have stayed behind. His cars would have remained parked. His companies would continue without him. Everything he had spent decades building would belong to someone else. Only his actions would follow him. That realization disturbed him deeply. Back in Dubai, he found himself unable to enjoy his usual lifestyle. The music sounded empty. The conversations felt fake. The laughter seemed forced. One evening, he quietly left a gathering and wandered through the streets alone, wearing ordinary clothes so nobody would recognize him. He eventually reached a quiet neighborhood far from the luxury districts. There he heard a beautiful voice reciting verses from the Quran inside a small mosque. He stood outside. Something about the recitation touched a place in his heart he had forgotten existed. He didn't understand why tears formed in his eyes. He simply stood there listening. When the prayer ended, an elderly imam noticed him. Instead of recognizing the famous billionaire, the imam simply smiled. "Peace be upon you, my son." Adrian replied softly, "And upon you be peace." The imam invited him inside. No cameras, no reporters, no bodyguards, just two people sitting quietly. For nearly 2 hours, Adrian spoke honestly for the first time in many years. He confessed that despite having unimaginable wealth, he felt completely empty. The imam listened patiently. Finally, he said something Adrian would never forget. "My son, wealth is not your enemy. Wealth is a test. If money becomes your master, it destroys you. If you become its master and use it to serve humanity and seek the pleasure of Allah, it becomes one of the greatest blessings." Adrian remained silent. The imam continued, "You have spent years feeding every desire of the body, but your soul has been starving." Those words pierced his heart. That night, Adrian returned home. Instead of opening another expensive bottle, he poured every bottle of alcohol he owned down the drain, one after another. His staff watched in complete shock. He canceled every party planned for the coming months. He dismissed people who stayed around him only because of his wealth. Many laughed. Some mocked him. Others claimed it was only a temporary phase. They were wrong. The following morning, Adrian performed the dawn prayer for the first time since his teenage years. His movements were imperfect. His recitation was hesitant. His eyes overflowed with tears. When he finished, he whispered quietly, "Oh Allah, I wasted so many years. If you still accept someone like me, guide me." For the first time in decades, he felt hope. The transformation did not happen overnight. Changing habits built over years was difficult. Temptations returned. Old friends continued calling. Luxury invitations kept arriving. People encouraged him to return to his previous lifestyle. Some even laughed publicly. The billionaire has become religious. He'll be back. He can't live without parties. Adrian simply smiled. He no longer needed their approval. Instead of spending millions entertaining celebrities, he quietly began visiting orphanages. He met children who had never owned a proper pair of shoes. He visited hospitals where parents prayed desperately for treatments they could not afford. He entered refugee camps where families had lost everything except hope. He met widows struggling to feed their children. He spoke with elderly people abandoned by their families. Every story broke another piece of the wall surrounding his heart. One afternoon, a little orphan boy asked him, "Sir, are rich people always happy?" Adrian looked into the child's innocent eyes. A year earlier, he would have answered yes. Now, he smiled gently. "No, my son. Happiness isn't something you buy." The boy nodded thoughtfully. That conversation stayed with Adrian forever. Within months, Adrian established one of the largest charitable foundations in the Middle East. Hospitals were built. Schools were funded. Scholarships were created for talented students from poor families. Thousands of water wells were installed in villages suffering from drought. Medical camps traveled to remote communities. Interest-free loans helped struggling families rebuild their lives. He paid for surgeries of children he had never met. He secretly cleared debts for families facing eviction. He restored homes damaged by disasters. Most importantly, he insisted that very few of these donations carry his name. "If people praise me," he told his foundation's directors, "my reward stays in this world. I want my Lord to know what I did, even if nobody else does." His accountants were stunned. Years earlier, Adrian had carefully calculated every investment for maximum profit. Now he often approved projects that would never generate a single dollar. Yet strangely, he had never slept better. One evening, he returned to the same traffic signal where he had once seen the elderly man giving water to workers. After asking around, he finally found him. The old man still spent every afternoon helping laborers. Adrian approached him respectfully. "Do you remember me?" The old man smiled. No, son. You changed my life without knowing it. Confused, the old man listened as Adrian explained everything. Tears filled the old man's eyes. I had no wealth, he said quietly. I only shared what little I could. Adrian replied, You were richer than I was. Years later, Adrian's business empire continued to flourish. Surprisingly, acting with honesty, fairness, and compassion strengthened rather than weakened his companies. Employees respected him, customers trusted him, and partners valued his integrity. Profit was no longer his only measure of success. He measured success by the number of lives improved because of the opportunities his businesses created. Whenever journalists asked him the secret of his happiness, he gave the same answer. I spent years things that disappear. Then I began collecting deeds that remain. People often expected him to speak about billion-dollar investments or business strategies. Instead, he spoke about gratitude, forgiveness, charity, humility, faith. Years after his transformation, Adrian stood quietly on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking Dubai. The skyline was just as beautiful as it had always been. His wealth had not disappeared. His success had not vanished. The city had not changed. He had. He smiled as the evening call to prayer echoed across the city. Years earlier, he had stood at this very window wondering why money could not buy peace. Now he finally knew. Peace had never been waiting inside another luxury car, another expensive watch, another celebration, or another achievement. It had been waiting inside a heart willing to admit its mistakes, seek forgiveness, and dedicate its blessings to serving others. Adrian closed his eyes and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. He understood that every human being stumbles. Every soul makes mistakes. But the greatest victory in life is not living without sin. It is having the courage to turn back before it is too late. And in that moment, the billionaire who had once owned almost everything finally discovered the one treasure money could never purchase: a peaceful heart.